Again, I bring you a hearty good morning on this wonderful Tuesday morning. This is certainly a joyous occasion, and I'm very honored and privileged to be able to serve as the Master of Ceremonies for today's dedication ceremony. My name is Lamar Coleman, and I serve as Eastern's Vice President for Equity and Diversity. And while I didn't have the opportunity to work directly for Dr. Carter, without a doubt, based on my tenure in higher education, his legacy and the work that he's done throughout the higher education landscape pretty much transcends all. And so even though I wasn't here while he was president, without a doubt, his work certainly transcends all of the higher ed institutions throughout our country. And so with that, this is certainly a very special and momentous occasion. We are going to get started, without further ado. We certainly have several phenomenal speakers to bring remarks and tribute on behalf of Dr. Carter, and so I don't want to stand in the way of that. And so, without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the podium Eastern's current president, Dr. Elsa Nunez.
Thank you, Lamar. We just appointed Lamar Vice President for Equity and Diversity, and it was a great decision. We're really lucky. We've seen him grow up at Eastern. He was the Director of Housing, and now he's got a bigger job, and he's a big talent. We're very fortunate to have him here. What a joyous occasion, Lamar said, and my heart is pumping. We've waited too long. There are a lot of reasons why it took so long, and I'm not going to get into them, but I'm just happy that we got here today. I wish we were in the building. I talked to some of you about postponing this to the spring, and my reaction was, God, no. I can't postpone it anymore. It's just not appropriate. So we can make it work even if it's cold. We talk about renting a tent and do it, but then we said, no, we can do it in the Betty Tipton room and make it as dignified an occasion as we could for our Dr. Carter. So thank you for coming here today to honor him. He was president of this great university, and he made it great. We are going to name the science building after him on this occasion, and I see many familiar faces in the audience who helped Dr. Carter grow this university to what it is today. I'm especially grateful to his daughter, Jessica, who is here. She will speak in a few minutes, representing the family. I know how much he loved his children and his wife and how dedicated he was to them. So Jessica, thank you for being here. I also want to acknowledge the co-chairs of the committee. Where's Teresa? Teresa, raise your hands for everybody. And Connie's not here, but I know that she's on YouTube, so Connie, wave on YouTube so we can see you. These two women, together with a fantastic committee from the community, made this happen with their will, and I want to thank them for doing that because no one person could do it alone. So again, Teresa, thank you for doing this and for being such a dedicated member of our community. During his 18 years as president, Dr. Carter expanded enrollment here. This was a university that was going to be closed down or merged with UConn. He didn't let that happen. He protected it. He launched new majors so that we could have the expanded enrollment, and he doubled the campus footprint with a host of new buildings. One of the special moments Dr. Carter enjoyed, and there were many, many on campus, and there are many stories, wonderful stories, when he got out his own trowel and laid a brick as part of the new building's construction, and he did that for every single building. Why? Because when he was a young man, he was a mason tender and loved knowing he was part of every building on this campus, so he made it his point to at least lay one brick. Isn't that a wonderful legacy? Perhaps no building was more special to him than the science building. I remember the day in 2008 when we dedicated the new science building. He was beaming with pride, as he should have been. His chest was big, and he was just so happy that he had accomplished that. There were many things to be proud of. It's a beautiful building. You're going to see it. We have, arrangements for you to go over and see the building. It's almost 200,000 square feet. It's the largest building on campus. It brought science courses and programs together that were previously housed in 7 different buildings, and it brought all the faculty together. Our biology, environmental earth science, physical sciences, mathematics, and computer science departments have long established themselves over the years. Since the science building opened, new majors in health science, data science have also gained traction and are now preparing students for excellent careers while supporting the state economy. Another strength at Eastern is our teacher preparation program. Dr. Carter loved the teacher education program. He built the Child Care Center, which also has offices for our teacher training faculty. And he loved them because he knew that the schools made a difference in the lives of so many young people. The science building is an excellent symbol of our commitment to teaching science to young children across the state of Connecticut. The science building also features modern labs that include a host of state-of-the-art equipment, microscopes, a virtual dissection table, and much more. The building has many green energy efficiencies, and after it opened, the science building gained the Silver LEED certification from the United States Green Building Council. Dr. Carter was a genius, and if I had a lot of time, I could give you the list of things he did, but I just want to name two. The first was, today, climate change and issues of sustainability, those things are vogue. Everybody's talking about them. He started that 20 years ago, over 20 years ago. He was a visionary, a genius. He started the Institute for Sustainability, hired a very effective man named Bill Leahy, and the Institute became instantly widely known in the state of Connecticut. He saw things before other people did. His second genius, people talk about he was a wonderful president of Eastern, but he was a wonderful chancellor for the entire system. And the other three state college presidents talk about Dr. Carter's genius. So in the old days, for us to get a new building, the legislature would appropriate the money, but then the bond commission had to release it. So where the politics got really tough was that we would get the money and then they would never release it. So this frustrated, of course, the presidents, but it often frustrated Dr. Carter beyond compare because he knew that we needed these buildings desperately to compete with UConn and the likes of the other private institutions, and he was competitive. So what he did was he came up with a strategy and went to the legislature and got a bill passed that allowed for 10 years of money. It wasn't a lot more money because that wasn't the genius. He locked in 10 years of the money every year with one commission meeting. So the commission met, it released all the money at once, which meant that for 10 years we could build, never having to go back to the bond commission. He was a genius. No one had ever thought of that. Over the first few years of the new building, enrollments in our science majors really grew, they doubled. But what Dr. Carter cared most about was the impact that the building would have on our students. Economists continue to point to the national data to make the point that we still need to graduate more scientists, more people in the STEM fields. At Eastern, that means more than just graduating students in our science majors. We are a liberal arts college. You know, we're Connecticut's only public liberal arts college. Dr. Carter was here when we got that designation. So that means that every student must take at least 2 science courses. Where did you hear of that? Only at Eastern, in the public university. Every Eastern student must meet our math requirement as well, besides the 2 science courses. Having students in accounting and social work and philosophy, in music, take college-level science courses and mathematics courses in that building means that all Eastern graduates are better prepared to meet the technological challenges of today's 21st century. On your program, there's a quote from Dr. Carter, if you would look at it with me. "It's about the students," he said. "Elsa, it's always about the students." I learned that from him, and that has been my mantra as well. All of us have heard stories about him playing pool with the students. He was good at pool. I never played with them because I'm terrible. Visiting classes, he would go in, and the faculty loved to see him. There are many faculty members here today to honor him. Sharing his wisdom one-on-one with students needing counsel. He was absolutely committed to giving each student on this campus an outstanding education. He believed it because he got one. As a Black man from a very, very modest background, he achieved greatness, and he knew at the heart of it was his college education. Dr. Carter's vision was to make Eastern's campus second to none, and he did it. He did it by his strength of will. I would say he succeeded. Don't you think so? The Science Building is just one cornerstone of his great legacy. I am so pleased we can recognize him today by naming the building the Dr. David G. Carter Science Building in his honors. And I thank you again for coming. Please make sure that at the end of this session, you go over to the building. There's a lot of memorabilia in the lobby that we set out so that you could see the history, not only of Eastern, but his role in developing this great university. I learned a lot from Dr. Carter, and the one thing that I will always take away from him is his act of greatness with each student that he served. Thank you.
Thank you, President Nunez. Without a doubt, the legacy of Dr. Carter certainly has withstood the test of time. But of course, behind many great men, there's a great family. And we are very honored to have one of his daughters here with us today. And so without further ado, I would like to ask his daughter, Jessica Carter, to come, and she will not only provide us with an invocation, but will also provide a few remarks on behalf of the family. Jessica?
Thank you, Dr. Coleman, and good morning, everyone. It is my honor to offer the invocation. Please join me for our opening prayer. If you prefer not to, I invite you to reflect during this time. God of all wisdom and knowledge, God of all understanding, it is our honor to gather before you this morning to celebrate the naming of the Science Building. We invite your blessing upon this gathering and upon all involved in it. We specifically ask for your blessing upon the work done in and through the Dr. David G. Carter Science Building. It is because of you and because of your grace that we can honor his life and legacy, his commitment to education and learning. O God, who knows all, can there be a greater need now than for wisdom, understanding, and education? Humanity faces so many issues, and we call on you, the Father of lights, for guidance. It is your divine knowledge and wisdom that we need in areas like mental health, climate change, pandemic management, all types of technological advances. And we also need the benefits of science, the pursuit of learning and discernment, the understanding of natural laws, scientific knowledge, rigorous testing, and observation. We need understanding on the laws and rules that govern the universe and all of your creation. It is with humility this morning that we ask for your grace, asking you to remember the work being done here at ECSU, the work of education, the work of science. May you grant wisdom, carefulness, perseverance, and grace to those here at ECSU for the work being done. May the efforts here contribute to solving long-term challenges that we face as humanity. And may your presence and blessing abide in this place, upon our state, this university, its administration, faculty, staff, and students. May the Science Building be a shining light in the midst of difficult times. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. So now I will put on my other hat and bring you greetings from our family. First, we would like to thank the committee, Dr. Nunez, the Connecticut State University system, the entire university family, Dwight Bachman, and friends and supporters. Most of our family lives out of state, and with COVID and during these times, most are not able to attend today's ceremony in person, so they're watching on the live stream. But I wanted to make sure that I took a few moments to share some reflections about my father. Most of you know Dad's backstory, some of you may not. You'll learn it a little bit here. My father was the youngest son of my paternal grandfather, Richard Walter Carter, and his wife, Esther. My dad had 4 brothers, all older than him, but my father was the son of his father's old age. My father was born when my grandfather was quite old. And when my dad was still a child, a devastating, life-changing event occurred. As I understand it, my grandfather owned a small general store in Dayton, Ohio. He didn't trust banks with money, so he kept the money in their house. One terrible night, the entire house burnt down, taking everything they owned. My dad's father later died of complications from that fire. His mother was seriously injured, saving my dad from the fire. Can you imagine what his life was like after that? My dad's right hand was burned so severely that he had to learn to write with his left hand. Many of you who knew him could see the scars and the burns on his hand. He had skin grafts multiple times. This began a very difficult stage of life for him. But education helped him during this period. I hope these following vignettes that I share, just a few, to keep within my 5-minute timeline, these few vignettes, I think, will help you understand how education illuminated the path of my father's life. At least from these stories, partly, you'll be able to see how he grew into the person that he would eventually become. Among the most influential instruction my father received came from his mother and aunts. My father and his brothers would get into trouble, as was often the case, with 5 young men. His mother would wait until he was sleeping in the middle of the night and wake him up for some instruction. For an hour or more, she would sit and talk with him about the need for changing his behavior, the need for improvement, what it meant to grow up as a young man. He and his brothers hated this form of discipline intensely. Naturally, it was very successful at corralling all of their tempers. Outside of the home, other influences arose. The Everett sisters were 2 women that taught in Dayton, the Dayton public school system. They noticed Dad was a bright young man and took it upon themselves to invest in his education and his life. They provided strict guidance, care, and high expectations for a young man who very much needed it at that time. I asked him once whether he invited the Everett sisters to his college graduation. And Dad looked at me with a sly smile, and he said, I invited them to my PhD graduation. Even then, as a young man, I think he knew that he was destined for greater things, but he never forgot the people who helped him. This later spurred him to use education as a tool to help others. It would be wonderful if all the stories of Dad's education were as positive as the Everett sisters' story. But a negative event also influenced him. When he was in elementary school, he wrote a short story, nothing particularly special, but a certain teacher decided that he lacked the intelligence to write that story and accused him of plagiarism. He was cleared, but he learned early that appearing too intelligent could be perceived as threatening to others, so he made a habit of keeping a low profile. By the time people realized the depth of his intelligence, it was too late to stop him. A third and final story is from my father's college days. He had a professor that was a very tough grader. Before class began, the professor told him and the other students his philosophy. I'm paraphrasing. The author of the textbook gets an A. The professor gets a B. The best students can get is a C. This professor was of Chinese American heritage, and he had a significant influence on my father's educational pursuits. My dad was determined to do well in that class, working even harder than usual, which, if you know my dad, is really saying something. Eventually, Dad received a B in that class. He was so proud of his work that he was able to demonstrate mastery of the subject matter that even a professor with such high standards approved of his work. In closing, education provided numerous opportunities for Dad. He grew as a person and as an educator, always wanting to repay those who helped him. Knowing that education was one of the factors that led to a better life for him, he paid it forward by helping to provide educational opportunities for others. He focused on the well-being of students, and much of his administrative work was intended to support student growth and development. This included securing resources to improve and build university facilities, as Dr. Nunez mentioned, to build the facilities, to develop grounds, and recruiting top faculty and students from around the world. He took great pride in bringing international students into the university. For Dad, education led to a life beyond his expectations. In the aftermath of the fire, he could scarcely have imagined that he would lead an institution like ECSU or become chancellor of the Connecticut State University system. By God's grace, with education and hard work, he was able to ascend to these roles. And now, because of Dad, education continues to lead others to enjoy lives far beyond their expectations. We are all so proud of you, Dad. We only wish you could have been here to see it.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for those heartfelt words and that very fitting tribute to your dad. For those of us who thought we knew him, I think after Jessica's remarks, I'm sure we can all feel that we know him a bit more and more warmly and more personal. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's about the students. It has always been about the students, is what Dr. Carter always said. And when we were arranging the program, the family certainly impressed upon me that students should be included in the program in some way, shape, or form. And so we have one of our student organizations, the United Voices of Praise, to come and give us a musical selection. And so, United Voices of Praise.
You are my strength, strength like no other, strength like no other, and it reaches to me. You are my strength, strength like no other, strength like no other, and it reaches to me. Say you are my strength, strength like no other, strength like no other, strength like no other, and it reaches to me. Say you are my strength, strength like no other, strength like no other, strength like no other, and it reaches to me. In the fullness of your, in the power, you lift me, hey, I'm coming up now, you lift me up. In the fullness of your I'm coming up now. You lift me up. Say you are my strength, strength like no other.
Strength like no other.
Strength like
No other.
and it reaches to me. You are my peace, peace like no other,
Peace like no other.
peace like
Peace like
no other. And it reaches to me. In the fullness of your, in the power, you lift me,
me up.
Say, I'm coming up now. You lift me up in the fullness of your, in the power, you lift me, you lift me. I'm coming up now. Up, say you are my strength, strength like no other.
Like no other.
Strength like,
No other.
and it reaches to me.
Thank you, United Voices of Praise. All right, we're going to get into a couple remarks from folks who have known and have worked with Dr. Carter to sort of drop some knowledge on everyone. I'll sort of drop some little trivia bits in between each speaker. And so it's a little segment that I like to call Did You Know? And so the first one is, did you know that when President Carter became president of Eastern in 1988, he made history by becoming the first African-American president of a four-year college or university in the state of Connecticut? One more. Did you know that one of Dr. Carter's first battles after becoming president was to ward off proposals and legislation that were aimed to merge Eastern with the nearby University of Connecticut? The political debate lingered for more than 40 years prior to Dr. Carter's arrival, but never resurfaced after Dr. Carter aided Eastern in rising to the prominence that it has today. So I'll drop a couple little bits of trivia in between each speaker. And so we'll jump into some remarks. And the first set of remarks come from the co-chair of the commemorative committee that worked very hard to sort of champion and rally support for the naming of the building. And the co-chair of that committee is Teresa Hopkins Staton.
Thank you, Dr. Coleman, President Nunez, Jessica. Thank you for sharing another piece of your father with us. I had the honor to serve as co-chair of the Dr. David G. Carter Sr. Commemorative Committee. Years ago, while walking across the University of Connecticut's campus, a jittery transfer student finding her way, I happened to cross paths with a man who inquired about my major, my day, and my experience at the university. That man was Dr. Carter, who at the time served as an education administrator at UConn. Little did I know that he would become such a dear, dear friend and mentor to me, or that decades later, I would have the honor and opportunity to honor that kindness. The campaign to name the science building after Dr. Carter grew out of the desire to honor and recognize a man whose genius, innovative vision, inspirational spirit, and undeniable courage touched those who knew him and those who benefited from his wisdom. He saw the intrinsic value in everyone, no matter their titles or positions, which speaks to the integrity and authenticity Dr. Carter internalized and exuded on and off this campus. A man who led with empathy and perspective, understanding a true leader doesn't emanate an aura of being in charge, but instead demonstrates an authentic consideration and care for those in his charge. That is why it is absolutely fitting and appropriate to name the science building after him. It represents a place of innovation, inspiration, creation, and action. And Dr. Carter, a man who opened the eyes, minds, and hearts of countless individuals to endless possibilities of greatness, both personally and institutionally. This commemoration has taken more than a year to reach fruition. And although I stand here at this microphone alone, this could not have happened or been achieved without the commitment, dedication, hard work, and encouragement of many, many other people. First, again, I'd like to recognize President Nunez for her support and the opportunity to work with her incredible staff. Dr. Stacy Close, who served as a liaison between the President's office and our planning committee, our core committee, and Dr. Eunice Matthews, who with Dr. Close prepared and presented a successful case for support to Eastern's Diversity and Social Justice Committee. And now Dr. Coleman for putting together this beautiful event. Thank you. My co-chair, Connie Belton Green, who is unable to be with us today, but I know she's live streaming. Hi, Connie, who worked closely with Dr. Carter on his executive team here at Eastern. Dwight Bachman, Public Relations Officer at Eastern, for his tireless work, boundless energy, and commitment to this day. Former NBC 30 correspondent Dr. Lou Brown, who is also streaming this event, and public relations strategist Anita Ford Saunders, who is with me today. I must also acknowledge and thank the scores of supporters that range from local and national elected officials to municipal and community leaders, clergy, educators, colleagues, friends, and the Carter family. They all represent the depth and breadth of his influence and lent their names and voices to champion this honor. In closing, there was a poem originally written by Mother Teresa that Dr. Carter loved to recite during commencement ceremonies here at Eastern, entitled Anyway. I won't read the entire poem, just the last two verses. They read, "The good you do today, people will often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give the world the best you've got anyway." Dr. Carter did tremendous good and gave us his very, very best. And today, this naming ceremony acknowledges and celebrates him in a way that he and his work will forever, forever be remembered. Thank you, Chair Matt Fleury, Vice Chair Dr. Merle Harris, and members of the Connecticut Board of Regents. Thank you.
Thank Thank you very much, Teresa, and thank you for, and the committee for the hard work that you put into making this possible. In fact, I want to take just a moment. If there are members of that commemorative committee, if you would please stand and be recognized. Members of that committee. Thank you again for your dedication. All right. Did you know that under President Carter's leadership, 15 new and renovated buildings were added to the campus footprint, doubling the university's square footage? Now, if you do the math, he was president for 18 years, 15 new buildings, that's almost a building a year. That's pretty impressive. Did you know that under President Carter's leadership, Eastern experienced a student enrollment growth of 40%? Pretty impressive. Okay, moving along with the remarks. So here's the thing. I'm going to be presumptuous here, but I'm going to assume that there's someone in this room that has known Dr. Carter longer than anybody else, with the exception of possibly Jessica. And so that person is his best long-term time friend. And that longtime friend is Justice Lubby Harper. So I'm going to allow Justice Harper to exert some privilege of being the one who has known Dr. Carter probably the longest, and Justice Harper has asked to pretty much go last. He's going to allow other remarks to be provided before he gives his remarks. So we'll give him that privilege, being that he's probably known Dr. Carter longer than anyone. And so with that, I'm going to ask Ms. Lorraine McDevitt, who is a community resident who not only lived in the community, of course, where Eastern sits, but worked very closely with Dr. Carter and developed a very, very dear friendship over the years. I think there's a jogging story and a car story and someone almost being hit somewhere in the midst of that. I don't know if that's a part of her remarks, but Ms. McDevitt, feel free.
Either I'm too short or this is too tall, but that's okay. This is just for Jessica. Jessica, when I met your dad in 1977, I almost ran him over with my car. He was a very big figure to run over, but my husband was at the University of Connecticut, and he was walking the campus, familiarizing himself with the students and the people, and it was at 7:30 in the morning. And I leaped out of my car and I said, "Who are you walking with a suit on at 7:30 in the morning?" And he said, "I'm stretching my legs and getting rid of fat that you get when you sit at a desk for a very long time." At that point, I was glad I didn't hit him. And I said, my husband is a professor here and swimming coach of boys and girls, and why don't you come in with me and meet him, because he loves walking the campus every day or every other day. So he said, okay, so you know what, how those places are, an athletic building. There are smells that you can't imagine. And I thought, this is the most embarrassing moment of my life. And there was my husband, who had ran from Willimantic to UConn, which he did 3 times a week, in this awful-looking sweatsuit that I don't know who it belonged to. But anyway, I introduced them. They became fast friends. They walked the campus almost every other day, weather permitting, the whole time that your dad was there. And it was one of the proudest moments of my husband's life. But as we go along, I'll continue. Dr. Nunez will tell me to move along. I was very happy to meet David. For a long time, he was Dr. David Carter, and my son, who was 7, said, "Why is he a doctor? He works at a university." And I said, "Well, that's just a title." So he decided that the children could call him David, which my husband objected to. But anyway, That day was a wonderful day for me because living in Willimantic, I got an opportunity to know what it would be like to have someone like him eventually move to Eastern, which he did. It was the greatest day that Eastern has ever experienced. I am so happy to be here on his behalf. So once he was president of Eastern, he immediately got to work. Prior to his tenure, Eastern had been somewhat of a diamond in the rough, but David saw its potential. He carefully and thoughtfully began to transform the little university in the quiet corner, as we're called, I still haven't figured that out, into a nationally organized university that it is today. He can be remembered as the student's president, which he was, as he could often be seen walking around campus and calling students by their name, which completely amazed me because I sometimes forget my next-door neighbor's name. He embraced the organic diversity that already existed in Windham and worked tirelessly to spread that to the university. He formed many partnerships between ECSU and the town. David and I would often meet for coffee. He wasn't much of a coffee person. When I was on the town council and discuss ways in which Eastern and the community could collaborate for the benefit of both. One such ways was the Relay for Life outgrew Windham High School. I presented David with the proposal of moving it to Eastern's, where were we going? Oh, the athletic complex. And he made it happen. Not only did Eastern host the relay, but also Eastern students were some of the most largest fundraisers that we had. It was an honor when Dr. Carter got there at 7 o'clock in the morning and walked with all of the survivors, some of which had never even been on the campus, which was really bizarre. And I'm sure I drove Ken DeLisa crazy because he was in charge of this, but he arranged to have the transportation department take people around the campus when they weren't walking and have an opportunity to absorb and see what the campus was about, which I thought was wonderful. Additionally, David received many accolades throughout his career. One in particular is near and dear to my heart. He was the first African American to be considered for the Award of Good Citizen, which he did get for the Connecticut Grand Lodge of the Order of Sons of Italy, which as a Sicilian, I was very much involved with, and he was very proud of that. And again, it was diversity because he met a different group of people and they all loved him. And he had some funny stories to tell, as you probably know. In 2006, Dr. Carter passed the torch to our current president, Dr. Elsa Nunez, and what a wonderful choice that was. Dr. Carter knew that Dr. Nunez could continue to carry out his vision while leaving her own thumbprint on the university, and that is exactly what she has done. I am grateful that I was included in this wonderful event today where we have come together to honor David as a friend, mentor, and humanitarian. By the way, when he would come to my house to visit with my husband, the children would open the door and say, "Dad, tall and dark is here." And your father and my husband would immediately say, "And don't forget handsome." Thank you so much, and congratulations.
Thank you, Ms. McDevitt. Did you know that under President Carter's leadership, Dr. Carter wanted to distinguish Eastern from the other state institutions by securing approval in 1998 from the Connecticut State University System Board of Trustees, designating Eastern as Connecticut's public liberal arts college. Eastern was subsequently accepted into membership of the Council of Public Liberal Arts Colleges, also known as COPLAC, in 2004. Did you know that Dr. Carter initiated exchange agreements with universities in Sri Lanka, France, Japan, Uganda, Brazil, and elsewhere, and the number of international students on campus grew to over 145 in 1995. All right. Next up for remarks, we have Dr. Martin Levin, who is a retired biology professor here at Eastern. And also, while Dr. Levin was employed at Eastern, he had the distinction of being the president of the AAUP Faculty Union. So he and Dr. Carter, I'm sure, had many good conversations, I'm sure. And so, Dr. Levin.
So you asked a former union president to come and talk about a former college president. Okay. I'll be kind. I want to say good morning to the members of the Carter family, to Dr. Nunez, distinguished guests, students, faculty and staff, past and present. It's really an honor for me to be here today representing the faculty. Feels great to be back on Eastern's beautiful campus. I haven't been here for a while. Did you know? Okay, now you do know that while the campus is so gorgeous today, this campus might not have been here today were it not for Dr. Carter. So let me give you my little story about that. I came to Eastern from Ohio in January of 1978. It was a sleepy little campus with not much to distinguish it. I had my first faculty meeting, and the major topic of discussion was the imminent closure of Eastern Connecticut State College and the fusion of it with UConn and the plan to fire all non-tenured faculty. I was a non-tenured faculty member. I had just gotten there. I thought I made the biggest mistake in my whole young career up to that point. Eastern's closure was a constant threat over the next several years, as some other speakers have alluded to. In 1983, things felt a little better when Eastern Connecticut State College, with a stroke of a pen, became Eastern Connecticut State University. Well, I say a little bit better, but I didn't feel a whole lot better, just a name change. But at least it was a good start. Then something very significant happened in 1988. A new sheriff came to town, and we all know who that is. That was Dr. David G. Carter. He was a man with a mission, as we have heard, and a very, very strong and persuasive voice. Over the course of the next several years, as we now know, he was working towards transforming Eastern from a sleepy little college into a world-class liberal arts university. So today we're here to dedicate the science building to Dr. Carter. As a biologist, I was personally interested in the science building. In fact, I wanted a brand new electron microscope laboratory. Now, most of you don't know what that is, and I don't want to take any more time because I don't have it, but those are big, and so I needed a lot of room. The original plans called for a much smaller building. I don't know if you knew that, but they did. Dr. Carter knew it was inadequate right from the start, and he lobbied hard in his inimitable way in Hartford to provide the more than $64 million to build that beautiful building. Finally, in 2008, we got our dream building, and we were so excited. As it turned out, for me, like Moses, I never made it to the promised land. My career took an administrative turn, and so I didn't move to the new building. Of course, as you know, this was not the only building. that Dr. Carter fought for. I checked Eastern's historical record to see how many buildings were built before he came. And did you know that he was responsible in one way or another for building more buildings on this campus than in the previous 100 years? Can you imagine that? And I don't think I interpreted that data wrong. I looked it up and I made careful. I counted all the different buildings that were constructed. Now, I really came to know David well when I became heavily involved in the AAUP, which, as you know, is a faculty union. Like today, sometimes the union was at odds with the administration in general, and the president in particular. And so sometime, I tried to figure out when this was, but sometime around 1993, I met with Dr. Carter over a very serious issue regarding him. Now, as a few of you know, he could become a little animated during meetings. And as I was talking to him about this particular issue, he became a little more animated. And I turned to him and I said, I asked him if he was upset about our discussion. And he said something, I'll never forget this. He leaned back in his chair and he said something like, yes. And I said, well, this is business, okay? You're the president of the university. I'm the president of the union. This is just business. And so we parted, we shook hands, and I left. Over the years, he reminded me of that discussion we had about it just being business. And let me tell you, with us, no matter how contentious the issue was, it was never personal. I only wish some of the politicians thought that as well, but anyway. Shortly before he became chancellor, he wanted to meet with me off campus. You can imagine how I wondered what he wanted to meet with me about, that I had to go off campus. And he said, let's go eat at the Altneve. Okay. That was a nice restaurant. So yeah, heck, he was paying, I'll go. It was about a week afterwards, and I was stewing all week long, trying to figure out what it was that he wanted to talk about. So the day came. And you know what we talked about? We talked about how much we loved Eastern. We talked about our families. We talked about our kids and how much pride we had in them. We didn't say anything about business. It was just two friends meeting to have lunch. And I'll never forget that day, because it was just so, he didn't want to talk to me about anything in particular, just let's talk about our lives. A couple of weeks ago, I spoke to a very dear friend who retired several years before I did. I told him I was coming here today, and I asked him if he could give me anything about David that I could share with you. And he said a few days after his mother died, he returned to campus and bumped into David, who asked him how he was doing. My friend said he started to blubber while he explained what happened as he tried to compose himself. David consoled him as best as he could. The next day, a plant arrived with a sympathy message from David, and my friend said that he never expected it, and it was very, very deeply appreciated. The last time I saw David was when he came to campus in 2014 for Nancy Tinker's memorial service. Nancy was our Director of Facilities and Planning. He saw me, he came over, he gave me a big hug. We talked for a few minutes, we caught up, and then we parted. So in closing, let me just say a few little things. The faculty greatly appreciated then and continue to appreciate now what Dr. Carter did for Eastern, not just for buildings, and you heard all the buildings, but also for the academics, and you heard that, so there's nothing more that I need to say about that. As for me, I personally witnessed Eastern's transformation, and I can say it was amazing. There were a few explosions that rattled my laboratory over in the planetarium, but I just, that was a building. I think when the new construction started on campus, I finally felt that I had made the right choice by coming to Eastern. And so I can think of no one who deserves this honor more than Dr. David G. Carter. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Did you know that Dr. Carter strongly believed in being of service to the community and believed this was an important component of a liberal arts education? As such, he instilled the same sense of value in Eastern students, whereby they donated more than 20,000 community service hours each year to various nonprofits and social service agencies. Did you know that probably ahead of his time, and I think Dr. Nunez mentioned this, probably ahead of his time in the fight for environmental sustainability, Dr. Carter created the Institute for Sustainable Energy on Eastern's campus, where Eastern's campus and the larger community were educated and fulfilled projects aimed at environmental sustainability. Next up for our remarks, we have a former student of Dr. Carter's, who Dr. Carter recruited from Sri Lanka. And as the story goes, apparently their friendship remained intact, not only throughout his time being a student, but even thereafter. And I'm sure he'll share some of the noteworthy experiences that he had with Dr. Carter. So without further ado, Chris Abayasinghe.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm Chris Abayasinghe, class of 2002. It is my distinct honor to be invited to say a few words on the impact Dr. Carter had on my life's journey. In listening to all who spoke before me, it's clear he touched many of us here. I also understand that many of you are eager to hear the justice's good words, so I will try to be brief in my comments. Nearly 20 years ago, I graduated from Eastern. I marvel at how much this campus has grown. Since then, it is a direct testament to the tireless work of the university's leadership and the vision Dr. Carter set in Eastern becoming the premier public liberal arts institution in the CSU system. And it is with this backdrop that I'd like to share 3 important lessons David taught me. I first met David, I think it was in 98 or 99, when he visited Sri Lanka on a recruiting mission. I had applied to a number of US colleges, and when David spoke about Eastern, I became intrigued. He spoke eloquently about the importance of students to think clearly and to be inquisitive, the pride he had in the faculty, and the value proposition that a liberal arts residential program provides in a student's formation. I started in the fall of '99. My first real interaction with David happened at the ACUS Gallery. Is that still around? Yes. It is, okay. I was working a catered event and running behind lugging the boxes of wine to set up the bar. As I'm trying to open these cork bottles, David walks in and sees me clearly falling behind. Without saying a word, he starts placing the bottles of wine and glasses on the table. Now picture this, I have the president of the university helping set up the event. After the event ended, I thanked him, to which he cracked a joke asking me if the Meritage was any good. I did not know it then, but David had slipped into being an educator in that moment, and I learned the first of 3 life lessons that I carry with me. Be kind, especially to those who need it. I worked on campus while attending Eastern to help pay rent, keep the lights on, and feed myself. I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but back when Burr was an all-women's residential hall, I picked up the early morning shift of feeding everyone there. I'd walk to work every morning at 5 a.m. from Bridge Street. One morning as I was walking up Wyndham Street, David pulls up and asked me if I'd like a ride to work. I was exhausted that morning, so I hopped in and he begins to drive. Right on cue, my stomach starts to growl. David turns to me and asks, "When did you eat last?" At this point, I'm incredibly embarrassed. You see, because back then we didn't have language such as food insecurity to explain what I was experiencing. I mumbled about lunch the day before and how my break later in the morning would provide the next meal. David looks at me and says in that matter-of-fact tone, "I'm taking you to breakfast." I protested, mentioning, "David, the women need to be fed, and I'm going to catch holy hell if I'm late to my shift." If you knew David, you knew that he never met a no he couldn't work around, and off to the local diner we went. So picture this, the two of us are having a full breakfast with David seated across from me, talking about the series of meetings he had later that morning, me just in awe. When we finished, David drove me to work and said he'd call and explain everything. As expected, I was admonished for being late, and no one believed me when I said I was at breakfast with the president because he abducted me. True story. I was in the office when the call came in and watched the growing confusion on my manager's face give way to astonishment when she realized exactly who the David on the other line was. David again was teaching me in that moment to show grace and extend that grace to others even without being asked. The last time we spoke was also the last time I saw him. It was just prior to his inauguration when we hosted a dinner down at Michael Purnell's. He spoke on what the chancellorship meant and how change was the constant. And in his closing remarks, he said, "Remember, it's about the students. It's always been about the students." As I was clearing the kitchen that night, David stopped in, shook my hand, and asked me if he could help with anything. I said things were going well, and I was working on a permanent visa to remain. He smiled and told me, like he always does, "Don't stay out too late after work." When I got in the next day, my director pulled me aside and said David had called to ensure the company understood how important providing an avenue to immigrate to this country was to him. What he taught me at that time was the most valuable lesson of all. It's about the students. It's always been about the students. I think fondly of the friends I met on my first day at Eastern. We've spread out to all corners of the world, accomplishing wonderful things. One of us is a business owner, another a managing director at an investment bank. One served as his nation's top diplomat, and me as a higher education administrator at Northeastern. We always speak about how impactful that Eastern experience was. I know it certainly changed my family tree. Not every student is blessed to experience an unsurpassed undergraduate residential experience like the one we have here at Connecticut's premier public liberal arts institution. It is our value proposition, a liberal education practically applied. This blessing takes commitment and acts of benefaction, 2 areas where the need is great and it still continues. As I close out, I want to acknowledge the committee for their great work. I want to acknowledge my colleague Lamar for convincing me to come down. You had me at hello. It's pretty simple. And I also want to commend President Nunez and her senior leadership team on continuing to blaze that trail forward. We send out students to change the world. I would invite us to learn more on the great efforts of our faculty in progressing that work and how each of us can better experience Eastern. I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Did you know that one of Dr. Carter's proudest investments was the $64.2 million science building, which opened in 2008, which helped to increase the number of students majoring in science? The science building is Eastern's largest building and most technologically advanced building as well. Did you know that as Chancellor of the Connecticut State University System, Dr. Carter secured the largest financial commitment from the state of Connecticut in the system's history, where he secured $80 million in bond funding, followed by $950 million for the system's 2020 Capital Infrastructure Investment Plan. Absolutely amazing. All right, this seems to be the moment we've all been waiting for. There's an old saying that iron sharpens iron. And basically, when two good folks are around each other for long enough, that they're bound to just sharpen one another. And so, as Dr. Carter's longtime friend, over 40 years from what I'm told, Justice Lubby Harper, who has previously served as a justice of Connecticut's Supreme Court, will bring remarks, and I'm sure it was well worth the wait. And so without further ado, Justice Harper.
Good morning. Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, President Nunez, faculty, students, staff, other members of Eastern Connecticut State University community, members of the Board of Regents, members of the Dr. David G. Carter Senior's Commemorative Committee, which incidentally was co-chaired by my friends, Dr. Constance Green and Attorney Teresa Hopkins Staton. Distinguished guests, friends, and most of all, family members of Dr. David G. Carter Sr. It is a distinct honor and pleasure for me to be here this morning, to have the opportunity to participate in this historic ceremony and to share with you a few remarks on such a special occasion regarding a brilliant, compassionate, and visionary man, my dear friend, the late Dr. David G. Carter Sr. I'm also truly honored that Dr. Carter's children requested that I share with you some comments about their incredible father at this wonderful dedication ceremony. Your father loved his family and was proud of each one of you. I'm sure that you are living a life that represents the values he instilled in you. So to each one of you, I say thank you for bestowing this honor on me. Today's dedication ceremony means so much to Dr. Carter's family, colleagues, and friends, especially Dwight Bachman, Eastern Public Relations Officer, who gestured to Dr. Carter in 2008 when the Science Building opened, that building should be named after him because of his passion for science. You see, Dr. Carter was inspired by the potential of science. He understood that we are surrounded by technological and the products of science every day. He understood that students growing up in an increasingly technological and scientifically advanced world need to be scientifically literate to succeed. He wanted students prepared for that reality and wanted Eastern to play a leading role in that field. So today, Dr. Carter's passion for science will be recognized and celebrated in a grand fashion. This naming dedication ceremony is so fitting for a man who enjoyed an amazing and distinguished professional career. What began as a teaching career in Ohio public schools eventually led him to Connecticut, where he devoted his energy and talents to our university system. He joined the faculty and served in various administrative roles at UConn. Among his accomplishments, he held the distinction of being tapped as the first African American to head a four-year institution of higher education in New England, when he was selected as the president of Eastern in 1988, where he spent 18 years. In 2006, he was selected as the first African American chancellor of this state's well-renowned university system. During his 5 years as chancellor, Dr. Carter led the university system through its greatest expansion in academic program and campus development. Most important to him, though, was the growth in student enrollment, which translated into an expansion of an educational opportunities. And yet, notwithstanding those remarkable accomplishments, there is something sui generis, unique, and even eternal that will occur today when the university's science building is named and dedicated in Dr. Carter's honor. Those of us who knew, respected, admired, and loved David will forever hold his memory and spirit in our hearts. The tribute we pay him today at this naming ceremony is different. This is a tangible expression of remembrance, a permanent and concrete expression of respect and gratitude by this university community that he held so dear. It is also fitting that this remarkable and modern science building is a monument to a man who literally helped to build and transform this campus. I knew this remarkable man for nearly 4 decades and enjoyed a wonderful friendship with him. I realized early on that David Carter was a special human being, a man who would make a difference, a person who would leave an indelible mark on higher education in this state and on society in general. I followed his illustrious and impressive career with pride. I boasted about his competence, talked about his energy, and reveled at how he drastically expanded and transformed the physical appearance of this campus and enhanced the academic offering and reputation of this fine institution that he always imagined to be a true beacon of liberal arts education. He knew that the physical appearance of the campus was important. It was important for it created an atmosphere that enhanced the student experience. You see, Dr. Carter was a Renaissance man, a beacon of hope, a trailblazer. He was a shining light in the hearts of so many people. He was a man of integrity who sported an infectious smile and possessed an unmatched sense of humor. He was clear about the mission of education, particularly higher education. He was a true educational leader, a skilled administrator, and a wonderful, wonderful human being. He deeply cared about students and believed in giving everyone a chance and an opportunity to succeed and become a contributing member of our society. He was respected and loved by members of the Willimantic community. He was an advocate for fairness and cared about justice and believed in treating everyone with dignity and respect. He thought outside of the box. He had a magnetic personality and pursued excellence with passion. Dr. Martin Luther King once stated that life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Well, I can tell you what David Carter did for others. As a consummate educational professional and a visionary leader, he has left a positive and an indelible mark on our state and the Eastern community. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said that the force of character is cumulative. He also said that what lies behind us and lies ahead of us are small matters compared to what lies within us. Our community felt the force of Dr. Carter's character as a result of his accomplishment and good deeds over the years. And what resonated within him was a substance that created an amazing man, a man whose dignity was matched by his commitment to serve. David Carter had a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. I, along with so many others, were so proud of him. God, yes, God ordered his steps, and he illuminated our hearts with joy. He gave so much to Eastern educational community and made a profound difference. Yes, it is fitting that this university, with the blessing of the Board of Regents, is bestowing upon his legacy the honor of naming the science building after him. Undoubtedly, he is a most deserving recipient of such recognition that will allow his spirit to glow forever. We thank the late Dr. G. Carter Sr. for his passion, vision, and service. We thank him also for something even deeper, a more profound gift that makes this dedication of the naming of the science building in his honor so appropriate. It was the gift of his intrinsic goodness, his loyalty, integrity, and the purity of his soul. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. David G. Carter Sr. was an unpretentious man, a modest man, a caring and considerate man, a man who dedicated so much of his professional life to the noble calling of public service. We thank Dr. David Carter for all that he has done, for all that he did, and for being such a vital and significant part of our state and the educational community. In so many ways, he brilliantly and faithfully served all of us. He fought the good fight, and when God called him home, I know in my heart, I really do, that the angels were smiling, for he undoubtedly continued to engage in and contribute to a heavenly community in which he had become one of God's faithful and devoted servants. We miss you, David. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justice Harper. That is definitely friendship right before our eyes. Did you know that as Chancellor of the Connecticut State University system, Dr. Carter increased enrollment throughout the system to an all-time high of 36,629 students between the four institutions? And did you know that Dr. Carter received numerous awards, and these are just some to name a few, to include Greater Hartford NAACP Roy Wilkins Civil Rights Award, Connecticut American Legion Outstanding Service and Leadership Award, Hartford Current Tapestry Award, Connecticut Grand Lodge Good Citizen Award, Man of the Year by the African American Affairs Commission, and many, many more. And so, without further ado, we've got our students to perform one more selection, and then we will move right along to the unveiling. So the United Voices of Praise.
And in my life, be glorified, be glorified. Oh, in my life, be glorified, be glorified. Somebody help me say now, in my life, be glorified,
Be glorified.
be glorified.
Be glorified.
Help me sing now, in my life, be glorified, be glorified. Sing it again, saying, yeah, in my life, be glorified, be glorified. One more time, say, yeah, in my life, be glorified, be glorified. You get the glory and you get the praise. You take the honor. I just want to say, and you get the glory.
Get the glory.
You get the praise.
You get the praise.
You take the honor.
You take the honor.
I just want to say thank you.
Thank
You get the glory.
you. Get the glory.
You get the praise.
Get the praise.
You take the honor.
Take the honor.
I just want to say,
Thank
you get the glory.
you. Get the glory.
You get the praise.
get the praise.
You take the honor.
Take the honor.
I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
And in my life, be glorified, be glorified. Let me now sing, yeah, in my life, be glorified, be glorified.
Be glorified.
One more time, say now, in my life, be glorified, be glorified.
Be glorified.
And in my life, be glorified, be glorified.
Thank you, United Voices of Praise. Okay, the moment I guess we've all been waiting for. As Dr. Nunez mentioned in her opening remarks, we really actually wanted to have this event outside. But obviously, you know, everybody is aware of the supply chain demand issue that the world is having. And so we had a slight delay in getting the signage and in getting the lettering done. And we wanted to make sure that that was in place in time for the dedication ceremony. So of course that pushed us to December. So rather than having you all out in the cold with blankets and everything else, we decided it best to sort of have the event in here. But we still wanted to allow you all to feel as though you are in front of the building and that you can see what the building looks like. So we're going to do an unveiling, and certainly after the closing of this ceremony, you will have the opportunity, if you would like, to go and see the building in person. So I'll invite all of this, Dr. Nunez and all of the speakers who spoke over to our display over here. Jessica, certainly.
Jessica, you need to stand here. Teresa, next to Jessica. And some of you could come on to the side.
specifically by a resolution of the Connecticut State College and University Board of Regents. A unanimous vote was held back in June of 2021 to rename the Science Building on the campus of Eastern Connecticut State University as the Dr. David G. Carter Science Building. And so we will now, henceforth and forevermore, become to know the Science Building as the Dr. David G. Carter Science Building. And here's what we have. All right, some closing remarks before we begin sort of our reception and fellowship. Couple remarks so we can get some housekeeping things out of the way. So we've come to the close of our ceremony. We certainly thank everyone for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come and be a part of this historic event. As we can see, the campus of Eastern Connecticut State University, as if it already weren't enshrined with Dr. Carter's legacy, but now there is certainly a fitting tribute by the way of naming of this building, so that these generations of students to come to Eastern in the many, many years ahead of us will certainly bear witness to the name of Dr. Carter. As I've mentioned, those who would like to visit the building personally will have the opportunity to do so. To find the building, you pretty much exit the Student Center through the food court and then pretty much follow that path to the main quad of the campus, and you'll see the Science Building on the right. There's some memorabilia that's set up in the back of this room. There's also some memorabilia set up in the lobby of the Science Building. There's also some refreshments that you can certainly stay and enjoy and fellowship with others, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I also want to call everyone's attention to there is a scholarship fund that is named in honor of Dr. Carter. The scholarship has been in place for many, many years, and right now it's an endowed scholarship and has a balance of $275,000. So the endowed scholarship pretty much works off of the interest and the money that's earned through it. And thus far, since fall of 2015, 29 students have been the recipients of various scholarships from that endowed scholarship to the tune of close to $100,000. And again, that's off of the interest. So we would certainly like to build that endowment up so that, again, we can award, more scholarships, from those funds. And so in the back, next to the memorabilia, you'll find some envelopes, and the envelopes sort of designate Dr. Carter at the bottom. If you'd like to contribute to the scholarship fund, so again, that endowment builds up, we certainly would appreciate that. You can certainly pay via a check as well as credit card. If you are doing so now, you can certainly leave the check. John Beck is holding a envelope in the back, so you can certainly give it to him. He works in the Office of Institutional Advancement, and he'll make sure that the funds get deposited to that endowed scholarship. If you'd like to take an envelope, and as you can see, it's already got the address listed on there, you can certainly take as many envelopes as you like, and certainly send one back every month if you care to, so that endowment builds up. And the last thing I just wanted to leave, as I think of Dr. Carter, some words, we've heard several quotes, from Dr. Martin Luther King. Several speakers sort of quoted Dr. King. And I wanted to leave everyone with some words of Dr. King as well, because this is something that sort of resonates with me as I think of Dr. Carter. Dr. King spoke these words at a speech that he gave, not sure where, but they're definitely very poignant words. And it goes like this. If it falls in your destiny to be a street sweeper, sweep like Michelangelo painted pictures. Sweep like Beethoven composed music. Sweep like Leontine Price sings before the Metropolitan Opera. Sweep like Shakespeare wrote poetry. Sweep so well that all the hosts of heavens and earth will have to pause and say, here lived a great street sweeper who swept his job well. If you can't be a pine at the top of the hill, be a shrub in the valley, but be the best little shrub on the side of the hill. Be a bush if you can't be a tree. If you can't be a highway, just be a trail. If you can't be the sun, be a star. For it isn't by size that you win or you fail. Be the best at whatever you are. When we think of college presidents, Dr. Carter was indeed one of the best. Thank you so much for your attendance. Enjoy the reception and the refreshments, and feel free to visit the building.